I did go to journalism school. Big waste of money. Never do it. But I'm glad to have a job right now during the pandemic. And yeah, I really did enjoy my college years. I played rugby there too. So I do have an athletic background too. But yeah, I really enjoyed my time at Loyola. It was a good time.
Cool. Sounds good, Tim. I think we might as well just dive right into the topics. We can do other podcasts where we talk about like college and our individual experiences, but let's just talk about the NBA. We know sports are back in action. We went so many months without having really anything. Like the fucking UFC was going on for a little bit. There was the drama of Fight Island. But we actually have like legit one of the top three sports back. We have MLB too. I don't think people care as much about that, especially
Fuck,
with us.
fuck baseball.
Yeah, I think especially with us both being Red Sox
I got I
fans.
got a baseball shirt on, but fuck baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with us both being Red Sox fans, which for the listeners, Tim and I, our dad is from Boston. He's from like just outside of Boston, so that's why we're fans of like the Patriots and the Red Sox. But we can talk about baseball another time because it's kind of a shit show. But Tim, I wanted to get your thoughts on the uh, Patrick Beverly, Paul George, Dame Lillard fiasco.
Yeah. Back to what you were talking about, though. It's kind of weird. It's weird because sports being back, it's actually something to do. Like during my shifts, I have something to actually watch while I'm working on the side. It's crazy. I mean, it's good to be back. UFC and some of those other sports, English Premier League, were back a little bit before, and that was a good little way into it. But man, it's good to have sports back. I'm really glad to have them back. Yeah, fuck. It's been the NBA bubble. They've 100%. I think you could say that too. They've aced it. They've killed this thing. I don't even remember your question was, but I think something with Patrick Beverly.
Yeah,
I really like Patrick Beverly. I think he's really good, but Dame Lillard's been on another level in the bubble. And, I don't think they're going to play each other again. Because, I mean,
yeah.
Dame really did choke that. Those two free throws that's ridiculous. He can't miss free throws like that in a game like that. But
Well,
Dame's had a really good set. I think they're gonna have a really good series with the Lakers. I think it's gonna probably go to 6-7. But I mean, if
well,
they can figure out LA's inside presence, maybe we can go pull 7 or maybe win this thing. But Hassan Whiteside's got to have a hell of a series.
yeah, and we'll get into our predictions for each series in a sec. But one thing I wanted to touch on with the Pat Bev, Paul George, Dame situation is like the way that Patrick Beverly is kind of clowning Dame. It's funny looking at Pat Bev where, I mean, he is a good defensive player. I'll give him that, but he averages 7 points a game, 4 rebounds. There was a segment earlier this year where Russell Westbrook had an interview after the game where they're like, how tough is it dealing with Patrick Beverly? And Russ was just like, Pat Bev tricks the whole media. He tricks everyone because he just running around there clapping, drooling like a fucking mutt dog when really I don't think he contributes as much as like people probably give him credit for. And I compared him talking shit to Dame. That's like Skip Bayless talking shit. That's like someone who's really never done anything and they're coming out and just trying to criticize someone who's great and someone who's capable of putting up 50 points. And then you talk about Paul George, where he was like, we're sending you home this year. I mean, do you think Paul George really has a right to talk in that instance where Dame sent him home last year? He hit that 37-footer right in his fucking face. And then PG has the audacity to come back, hide behind Kawhi Leonard, and be like, oh, yeah, but we're better now, when PG isn't even the best on his team. I mean, do you think that that's justified for him to even say anything there?
Yeah, that's a big thing we got to talk about is playoff P, as his nickname is, PG-13.
Yeah.
He's really never shown up in the playoffs. He had a couple really good games when he was on the Pacers and the Heat were in their prime, where he kind of pulled that series closer than everyone thought it was. But since then, he's been fucking dog shit. So this is kind of the year, like, he's healthy. He doesn't have excuses. Kawhi's going to be Kawhi. I think Kawhi's going to will them to the NBA championship if PG shows up or not. But if Paul George shows up this playoffs and just is dog shit again, like he just has nothing to say at this point. He's been a big letdown. I mean, he's always had really good numbers, and he had a couple really, really good seasons in Indiana, and then he was good on the Thunder for a year. But man, like he's just, it's the same shit. He doesn't really have anything he could say.
Right. Yeah, I think I was listening to a few different shows where they poked holes in his argument where he hasn't been out of the first round since 2014. Like you mentioned, he was great for the Pacers. He was so young, too. He was like 23, 24, just going at LeBron and like one-upping him or playing just as well as him in almost every.
Yeah, that Pacers team was really loaded too. That was a different NBA, but that was when Roy Hibbert and when having Roy Hibbert and David West was actually like a legitimate thing when big guys actually meant something.
And Lance
Now you look at that team now compared to if they played the Rockets in today's NBA, they'd be running around.
Yeah.
But
cool.
Just a different league then.
Yeah. Well, good to hear your insight then on like Dame Dalla and Pat Bev PG. Let's just get into the predictions. You touched on Lakers Blazers. What do you think that series goes to and who's winning?
I'm gonna go Lakers in 6. I think the Blazers have the guard play to kind of pull it further because, I mean, the Lakers are going to have no answer for them on the perimeter, especially without Avery Bradley. And I think Rondo will be back by then. And like AD is going to get his. I think the Blazers completely will try and get – that's another thing I got to get to is the Blazers have really no answer defensively for Anthony Davis or LeBron. If they had Trevor Ariza, that would be one thing. They could have a guy who's actually just a defensive stopper, somebody who could actually get in front of LeBron and at least try and slow him down. But I don't care how much their depth at center is right now with Collins, Whiteside, and Nurkic. Like, none of them are good defensive players, really. I mean, Whiteside puts up a lot of blocks there, but he's not an elite defensive center. So it's kind of just
I think
we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But the Lakers just have no scoring outside of the duo. So we'll see what happens. I think if Caruso can step up, it'll be 6. But if they struggle to find decent replacement, decent production out of the guard position, Sink could go 6, maybe 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I also said Lakers in 6 for that. I think the biggest issue for the Blazers, like you touched on, they have really no answer for Anthony Davis. I mean, I think back to when they got swept by the Pelicans. Was that 2018? Was that 2 years ago?
2018, yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah. And yeah, they had no answer down low. They also didn't have Whiteside then. I think that was the first year they had Nurkic, and Nurkic doesn't play good defense. We know this. He's an offensive guy. But yeah, it was 4 games and it was over with.
Yeah, you mentioned the perimeter scoring too. I mean, I think it was the game earlier this year where the Blazers played at Staples Center and Dame went off for like 36 points, I think. It was that stretch where he had like 4 games of 50-plus points, and then he had the 36 against the Lakers where they won. It was like the night of the memorial for Kobe, and Dame went out there and killed them. So you're right. Yeah, I think it's going to come down to like CJ and Dame hitting shots, and then Gary Trent Jr. too is going to be a huge aspect. I think he might be like the guy that needs to step up for them.
Yeah, I mean Portland's had guys step up all over the place. They've been probably the most impressive. Well, you got to say the Suns probably because they didn't lose, but they've been the second most impressive team in the bubble, and that's mostly because their guys up front are healthy finally. So Gary Trent Jr. and Carmelo can finally get those open looks. And, CJ is probably playing at about 60% of what he is right now with the broken back and everything, but he's still been really impressive, especially that playing game down the stretch. He was incredible, just bucket after bucket for him.
Do you think the intensity of the game, like in the bubbles, has it been due to them like not being able to nut or have women? Like, do you think that's why they're just more energetic? Do you think that's a case? I've heard that theory thrown around.
Well, it could be. I saw Adam Silver's bringing that stripper rule that you can't bring someone courtside that you don't know or haven't known before. So that might be playing. Mm-hmm. That might be playing into this whole thing, but we'll see. They've done this bubble thing pretty well. I mean, besides Lou Williams going to Magic City.
Yeah, no, he just needed his hot wings. All right, let's go to the next one I think I put on the list. Do you have the list in front of you, Tim?
Let me see.
Let's do Rockets Mavericks next. Cuz is or no, sorry, it's Clippers Mavericks.
Mavericks, Clippers. Clippers in 5. Mavericks are a really impressive team. They have a lot to build around, but they need that third star if they're going to get to contention. And I think the Clippers haven't taken this whole year seriously. We know that they don't care until they get to the finals or until they get to the conference finals against the Lakers.
Mhm.
They've taken this whole bubble thing really, just don't really care. At the end of the day, once they turn it on, they have two of the best get a stop, get a bucket kind of guys in the whole league. If PG plays, like we talked about, if PG steps up. So, yeah, I think 5 games, maybe, but Kawhi is going to shut down Luka.
Yeah, I think so too. Tim, as we were talking, I just got a message from a girl on Hinge who I was talking to a few days ago, and she said, "Hey," with 4 exclamation points. Sorry for the delay. Do you think I should just ignore, or should I message back and be a simp there?
Simp to it. Nah, I don't know. Tell her you got a pod.
I'm working. No, I agree with you on the. I think Kawhi will probably be able to handle Luca, uh, but I don't know. I mean, he's something special. They do have that duo with Kristaps and Porzingis, or sorry, Kristaps and Luca. But you're right. I mean, the Clippers have so much depth and so much experience, and we can get to this like when the next round happens when we do more predictions. But I mean, if I were to pick a finals winner, to me, it's the Clippers because you're right. Like Kawhi, the whole season was just in that resting mode where he was taking like
Yeah, they don't care.
playing every other game basically.
Well,
Yeah.
they knew it too. They were firmly locked in as the 2 seed for a while because they didn't give a fuck if they were the 2 because, like, oh, okay, we got to play road games at the Lakers in the conference finals. Like, who the
Right.
fuck cares?
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing we got to talk about too is they have Doc. Doc Rivers is the best coach in the NBA. I mean, besides Nick Nurse, he's
Yeah.
probably the best coach in the NBA playoffs. And I mean, having a coach like that, like all this talk about Frank Vogel being a very good coach, like it's just false.
Right.
Frank Vogel's a joke. Like he's LeBron's puppet master. Like Doc Rivers is a good coach who's won a championship before.
Yeah, I agree. And he doesn't have his annoying son on the team anymore, too.
Yeah.
So what's next? So Rockets Thunder. This one is juicy because we had Chris Paul leave the fucking Rockets to join OKC, and now they're playing.
Well, you got traded. I think Rockets in 6. It depends if Russ isn't playing in game 1. I saw that today. So I think this thing could go 7, but I think it's going to be Rockets in 6. The Rockets looked impressive in the first couple games in the bubble, just with their guard play and like now that they don't have a center, they've been able to space it out. Get Westbrook his touches, get Harden his touches. I mean, they have 2 incredibly impressive scorers in their backcourt, and then they have shooters all around. PJ Tucker's a good shooter, and then they have not Clint Capella. He got traded. They have Robert Covington who can drive inside, and he can also shoot from 3. So they're well set. I think they're the team that no one's talking about that could really make a run at this thing.
Yeah, I mean, how do the Thunder stop Harden?
Yeah, they don't. Chris Paul's a great defensive player, but like James Harden's the best scorer I've ever seen play basketball.
Yeah, and like Lou Williams, I mean, they're both good offensive talents, and they love lap dances, so they'll probably meet later on. What was the last Western Conference matchup? We've covered those.
There are a couple others. Jazz Nuggets. I think the Nuggets win in 7. I think that's going to be a good turn. That's going to be a very good series. The Jazz kind of match. The thing is, the Jazz really match the Nuggets' strengths very well because Gobert's going to keep Jokic in check for the most part. But I think that Denver's just just so much depth. I mean, when we get to the playoffs, depth doesn't really matter that much. But I mean, that's why I think it goes 7. I mean, give or take, I think Donovan Mitchell's the best player on the floor in that series. So I mean, it could be something that swings their way and they win in 7, but it's gonna be a battle this series.
You think he's better than Jokic?
Yeah, that's a coin flip. I think.
I mean,
I think Jokic is probably better. I mean, Gobert. People say Gobert's overrated, but like, he's not. He's won Defensive Player of the Year a couple times.
Yeah, and he was great at passing along the virus to everyone else. Okay.
Yeah, he shut down the whole league. He's a phenomenal defensive player.
Great defender. For some reason, I don't like Donovan Mitchell. I know we're not really talking about personal players, but there's that group of those third-year guys, Kuzma, Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, where you look at their social media and they all kind of think that they're the guy. And I get that Mitchell and Tatum were all-stars this year. Maybe I just hate Kuzma a lot because of his blonde hair.
Kuzma's a piece of shit. We talked about that before. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Do you want to Eastern Conference?
Yeah, let's just go to Eastern Conference. Fuck Donovan Mitchell.
Nets Raptors. Can we just pass it on? Raptors at 4. Yeah. I saw that today. Somebody tweeted, it said Nets plus 1,200 to win the series is the best bet. Like, give me a break. That's Raptors in 4.
I will say though,
I think
one sec, Tim, on Nets Raptors. I was very impressed with LeVert. I don't know if you watched that Blazers and Nets.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. He was great. I mean, it was also Dame and CJ aren't great defenders, so you got to keep that in mind. But he was just bullying them down there. He's physical. So
the rim at will. Yeah, he's a good player, and yeah, I mean, I think the Nets have at least somewhat of a future, but yeah,
maybe they could win a game.
Will take care of
I mean, no, they've shown with this young core that they actually have like good pieces in place, but Kyrie and Kevin Durant want to trade those pieces away to get a third star. God only knows who that third star is. I mean, no one really cares for the Nets. People forget like, oh, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are on this team. You kind of just forget that.
I forgot just now when I said they have a future. I totally forgot they have 2 fucking all-stars.
Yeah, I mean, it's
2 of the weirdest people in the NBA.
Next year, I mean, we'll see if I think they'll probably be a 3 or a 4 seed in the East, but they're never going to win a championship with that team. I'll call that now.
I saw some
2 selfish fucks.
I saw something that Kevin Durant said that his best friend in the league was Kyrie Irving. What do you think that relationship is like? Do you think they're just up late at night DMing each other, talking about how flat the earth is or the fucking Illuminati? Like, those conversations have to be insane.
Yeah, I think they're the guys who frequent Williamsburg bars downing vodka sodas. So that's at least my prediction. Next one, Sixers Celtics in 5.
Because Simmons is just out.
Ben Simmons is out. He's out of the bubble. Joel Embiid's been hurt. I think he's gonna play in all 5. He's gonna play in all the games, but he's been hurt. Sixers is just a mess. They gotta blow this thing up. Celtics are another dark horse. Like, they're kind of the team in the Eastern Conference, kind of compared to the Rockets, where no one's talking about them now, but with the neutral playing field being like of the bubble, Celtics could go win this whole thing. I mean, they kind of have this whole thing built well. The biggest issue for them is just getting somebody who can play down low and stop Giannis to come out of the East.
Because they just have that bum Theis, right? Like Thomas Theis. Is that his last name?
Theis,
okay.
Daniel Theis. No, their starting center's Enes Kanter, and he's Enes Kanter.
I saw some tweet that said that Theis is a bargain brand Aaron Baines.
I mean, he's a decent player. He can shoot threes. I don't know. He's okay. Yeah. But yeah, he'll be all right. I think Celtics win this one easily. I think the Celtics get to the Eastern Conference Finals, though. It's either them or the Raptors. But I mean, if it's not the Bucks coming out, it's one of those. And then, watch out because maybe they figured it out. But the Celtics, the first team in 4 or 5 years to have 3 20-point scorers.
I mean,
Biggest issue for them is Kemba's health, and Kemba doesn't look healthy right now. So
what do you
we'll
predict
see what
for
happens.
Jaylen Brown? Jaylen Brown got paid the bag in the offseason. He's played
And
well.
he's been great.
Now's the time to prove it. You got paid all that money. He made all
I mean,
this.
they're kind of the team that's like the next, Kawhi and Paul George. Like they're not going to get to that level. Maybe they will. I mean, Tatum, if he keeps going on his trajectory, could be a top 5 player in the league. He's already a top 10 player. Jaylen Brown's not far behind either. I mean, he wasn't an all-star this year. He's close, but he earned that contract, and he's going to keep getting better. He's the best defender on the team too. So Jaylen Brown's great. Can't really say he's been anything but. I mean, last year everybody was bad. Like, I think every player on that team could kind of just call last year a wash because of Kyrie Irving's narcissistic ass. So they'll figure that out.
Cool. And then what did we have next?
Magic Bucks 4, and then Heat Pacers. Heat Pacers is going to be a good series.
Let's do Magic Bucks real quick because the Magic, Jonathan Isaac, he got hurt, he got injured, and every BLM supporter was like, "Oh, he got hurt because he stood for the anthem."
Yeah, I mean,
that was pretty cruel.
He's going to be an InfoWars contributor pretty quickly. Him or Michael Porter Jr. But I mean, that's just like the anger on that side. I mean, I saw people on Twitter when he stood for the anthem, and they're saying like, yeah, he has no idea what he's saying. Like, he doesn't think that's the answer, but it's just like, are you really going to tell a young black man like what to do?
Well, and
really going to tell him how to go about the national anthem?
So I wrote a blog about this actually, and the title was "My expectations for sports media were low, but holy fuck," because Taylor Rooks from BR, she was like, "Do you think that Black Lives Matter?" After he stood, and it's like you're gonna ask a black guy, he thinks his life matters.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a lot of people. I mean, Myers Leonard had that same issue. He's like, I love my teammates. My teammates love me. I'm so part of this issue, but it's just like, I just can't, in all good conscience, do that because he comes from a military family and he knows that, and it's just like, all right, so now you want to judge him and ask like, oh, do you think your own life matters? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, you should have a right to do either or without a social media post being made. There was literally the SportsCenter Instagram account literally posted Myers Leonard standing during the anthem, and it was a video of him standing for 10 seconds, and that was the entire post. Like that was the post.
No, I mean that's the thing that's been talked about right now is ESPN, ABC, the whole like everyone in charge of the NBA has made the national anthem a spectacle. Like they brought us into this thing like, oh, the national anthem is next. They would show it and then they would go back to commercial. Like they would go commercial, national anthem to commercial. Making it a spectacle, like, oh, look at these people, like, look what they're saying, like, look at their, and like, we completely understand their, like, the reason that they're protesting and their, like, reason for kneeling for the anthem, 100%. But when you make it a spectacle like that, and when you make it when the norm of somebody standing for the anthem is so just like an outrage, like, it's just a disgrace. Like that, I mean, that's not on the NBA. That's not on the players. That's not on anybody. That's on ESPN. That's on ABC. That's on SportsCenter. That's on the executives that make it a spectacle like they've made it.
Yep. I mean, anything that's going to get views or cause controversy, they'll exploit it.
Yeah. I mean, because they're part of the media. They want money, and they want page views, and they want clicks. And that's the same shit with every kind of media.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Let's the Magic kind of suck when our only topic is about how one of their players was standing.
I mean, I couldn't name 5 other players in the Magic.
They got Fultz.
Markelle Fultz, yeah. So yeah, Bucks in 4. They'll probably be able to rest Giannis for one of those games, honestly. And then our last one, which will be a good series, Heat Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for that.
TJ Warren, Jimmy Butler beef, the trilogy,
Yeah. I mean, I
which will
didn't get
be.
a chance to watch the last game they played, but I mean, TJ Warren was lighting up the bubble, and then that first Heat game, he only had 12 points. Yeah.
Got him down. I mean, Jimmy didn't really have a good game either, so it was kind of a moot point. But
Uh-huh.
we'll see. I think this one's Miami. Miami at 6, maybe 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go 6. I think Miami's got a really solid core put together. They're just not good enough to win a championship. That's kind of the thing they should have broken to. I mean, gotta love Jimmy Butler wanting to do it for himself, but he really should have stayed in Philly if he wanted to win a championship because
Yeah.
not going to win one in Miami with that group. I mean, Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson might get a little bit better over the years, but can't really see it right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll probably take the Heat too, winning that series in 6 games. But if I were to root for a team, it's the Pacers. I mean, watching TJ Warren light it up, I definitely like him more than Jimmy Butler in that feud. And then TJ McConnell, us being like 5'10", 5'11" white guys, it's hard not to root for a guy who at least looks similar to us in the NBA and is making his way. So he's awesome. He's also a Pac-12 player, so he's always hilarious to listen to. And then Oladipo as well. So the Pacers, I want them to pull that out, but yeah, it'll probably be Miami. My gripe against Miami is, have you seen like Tyler Hero, like that video of him doing the GQ, how I spent my first million?
I haven't.
Well,
Honestly.
he's like, I spent 60K on a purse for mom. I like to go shopping in Miami Beach. He's just like the ultimate tool, and I don't blame him for being so rich at such a young age, but I see people like that who care more about the swag than the game, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want you to do well there. Um, cool. So Tim, do you want to save the top 5 segment for next time?
Yeah, let's do that. College football.
Oh yeah, let's discuss college football. Totally forgot. So, as you guys know, how it currently stands, the whole college football thing is a shit show, and it's upsetting seeing as they had like some of the longest time to figure this out, right, Tim? Like we learned about COVID early March, and they
There
kind
was no.
of yeah, they kind of just sat on their ass and were like, well, this should all be resolved by the time we get to August, September, when players have to like get back and start reporting to camp. Obviously not the case. Obviously people don't really know what they're doing. As it stands now, I mean, the Pac-12 said they're not playing. I believe the Big 12. It's just like the SEC, right, who hasn't
Big
committed to
12
anything.
and SEC are planning to play.
Big 12 is planning. Oh, so Big 10 canceled.
Big Ten's out. That was the thing today they were talking about is ACC is going to play. ACC wants to play. Same with SEC and same with Big 12. Basically, the part of the country that COVID is still a big problem is still playing because they never took this thing seriously. But Big 10 canceled, and as well as Pac-12, which is just
So I was watching.
it's never been about player risk. It's
Yep.
never been about any of this other stuff. It's been about liability because these schools are bringing kids back for the school year, in-person classes, but they don't want to do it because they don't want to get sued. Because if somebody gets COVID and there's long-term ramifications with this, like they're screwed.
Right. And it's the issue too where if one conference backs out, then other conferences are under pressure. Like the Ivy League, they backed out. And if something were to happen to say like a Pac-12 player, say they choose to play, then it's like, well, why were you playing your guys when other conferences had the same information you did and chose
Yeah,
to sit out?
that's the same. That's the reason the Big Ten did it, because the Big Ten jumped out before everything and they thought they were going to get praised as this group that like, oh, we jumped out before everybody. We were ahead of this thing. And it's like the biggest hypocrisy is the commissioner of the Big Ten. I don't know his first, Kevin Warren, I think. His son is playing college football this year for Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And he talks about the risks and all this other stuff. Like, no, it's liability. And you have schools and you have school administrators coming to you and telling you this thing's not going to work, to the point where, you know, his hands are probably tied and people say he made the right decision. I don't think he did. I think the players are way more at risk of getting COVID by not playing, by not following these protocols that they have to follow, by instead, you know, being on campus, being with their friends and partying and drinking every night. Like, obviously you're going to get corona way more likely when you're going to frat parties and you're going and hanging out, rather than, you know, going and working out with your team that have been quarantining and have been following these protocols and practicing with them. Like, it's ridiculous.
Right, and that's what Trevor Lawrence touched on. That was his series of tweets where he's like, you know, I'm not a science major or anything, but it is way safer, is what he was basically saying.
Yeah.
And he
the
also
most well-spoken person. I mean, God only knows if those are his tweets, but probably the most well-spoken person in this whole pandemic was Trevor Lawrence. And those sets of tweets, you know, everybody could look at it and they were arguing and saying like, oh, you know, maybe they shouldn't play, but, you know, read his tweets and it's like, man, that makes sense. Like,
there was a conspiracy
to play.
That Coach O took his phone, but either way, I mean, no, I thought it was articulated well. Apparently, like, Justin Fields is getting into the mix too, where he wants
to play too, and he was saying that today. He wants to make a petition for players, especially in the Big Ten and the Pac-12, to personally have to opt out to not play. And I mean, the biggest thing that we got to talk about is these guys, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, could opt out of this year so easily, and they'd be first-round picks.
Right.
They'd be millionaires in 9 months.
Well,
but they don't give a fuck. Like, they want to play.
Right.
Those guys both lost, you know, they don't want their last college games to be a loss. Both of them lost in the college football playoff last year. And, you know, I respect the fuck out of that for those guys who are just like, you know, fuck this shit. Like, I don't want my last college game to be 2 years ago where I lost, you know, off, you know, Justin Fields with a last minute interception, and then Trevor Lawrence, a couple of different things went wrong in that LSU game, but they were just overmatched.
Right. And there's also the point too where, you know, this not playing a season this year, it could ruin chances for someone who is on the fringe of maybe getting drafted. Joe Burrow had a crazy tweet.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Burrow said, if this happened last year, I'd be looking for a day job. Like, the dude wouldn't have been on an NFL team.
It's incredible to think about, yeah. Like, it's all about opportunities. And the guys who are going to be first-round picks, a lot of them have already opted out because they're, you know, they know and they want to secure that future.
Right. That's like –
yeah, a guy like Joe Burrow, fuck. No one knew who Joe Burrow was before the Texas game last year. Then he kind of came out of nowhere, and he was just like, wow, this kid can play. And now, look, he's the number one pick. Like, the most ridiculous rise and having the best college football season probably ever for a quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's crazy, and it sucks. And this COVID thing's fucking bullshit. Yeah. But there's not much we can do about it. And, you know, it's up to the decision of the administrators. And at this point, there's no real – I read an article about this week. Like, everybody hurts. Like, regardless if you're playing or if you're not, like, everyone's pissed off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so give me a prediction here. Like, what do you think's going to play out? Like, fast forward to October, what are we doing?
That's a tough question to say. I mean, it depends on how COVID kind of deals in the next couple of months. We're getting this thing under better control, and the numbers are going down, but we got to think about just everything. I mean, a lot of colleges right now are apparently telling people to pack light because if there's a big outbreak, they need to leave. Mm. So it's tough to say. I think the Big 12, SEC, and the ACC are going to play. And if they can keep this thing under better control, they'll, we'll see what happens. But fuck, it doesn't matter. Like, what's the point of playing a national championship if the Big Ten and the Pac-12 don't even have a say in it? Like,
Right.
maybe it could be a season where neither of those teams showed up, but like we fucking knew that Ohio State was gonna make the playoff this year at least. Like that team's loaded, and the Big Ten's the most consistent conference in the country, and they're just not playing football. Like,
Yeah. It would
what's the
certainly
point?
be, yeah, it'd be an asterisk if someone won. Also, the talk of spring football is fucking ludicrous.
Yeah, it's
I don't, I
fucking
don't,
bullshit.
I don't mean to steal
That's not
words
gonna
from, I don't mean to steal words from Mike Golick, but listening to that PMT earlier today, where he's like, these players would finish up the season in like June and then be expected to report back 2 months later after playing a full season. And for those who are going to the NFL, which Ohio State obviously gets a ton of NFL guys, they would be going like straight into NFL while everyone else, like all other NFL players, which the NFL is going to play their season, they've had a full year's rest where these rookies are going to come in just fucking trashed. And if you're on the fringe, you're an undrafted guy trying to make a team, you're just broken down too from not playing. So it's definitely just like the Big Ten making that statement like, oh, we'll do spring ball. That's them just giving everyone some false hope.
Yeah, that's just the classic, like, oh, we'll punt on this and hope for later. That's been like they're postponing. That's been the issue with everything, like, yeah, I get that with COVID, you can't really make decisions like that far in the future because you don't know what this thing's going to look like. But like postponing and making these decisions way out in the future, like they've done, like that's just stupid. We don't know what the virus is going to be like in this country in a month. You got to hope it's under way better control, and I think we're heading that way. But man, it's like it's just you can't make those decisions of, oh, we're going to play in the spring. Like spring football won't happen. I'm calling that right now. I think it won't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's been talks of like trying to do a bubble, but how the fuck do you even like do a bubble when you don't have
College sports can't do a bubble. It's just not, like, especially when you don't pay the athletes. Like that's a whole nother issue we can get into later. But you don't pay the athletes anything. Like, give me a fucking break.
Yeah. Cool. And anything else for college football?
No, I mean, let's just hope the season's played. Something to do on Saturdays. If not, the NFL will just play on Saturday.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I'm fine with that. The biggest thing about the NFL that I associate with is like Sunday scaries. Like when you were in high school, Sunday night football's on. And it's like, oh, this is a fucking awesome game, but I have a shit ton of homework. Now having it on Saturdays, that's kind of relieving. Maybe that's why I liked CFB more than the NFL growing up. But yeah, Saturdays, that's a move.
Yeah, see what happens.
Yeah. Cool, Tim. Well, let's sign off. I'm going to start recording now, and let's get this going. All right, Tim. Cool. See ya.
Did you send the record?